Welcome to the Retire Ready Podcast, the podcast that helps Canadians prepare for all that retirement brings. I'm your host, Scott Sather, founder, president, and financial planner at Awaken Wealth Management, and portfolio manager with Awaken Investments of Aligned Capital Partners in Regina, Saskatchewan. Thanks for joining me today. In this episode, we're going to continue talking about the different accounts available for retirement savers. Last time we discussed the ins and outs of the RRSP, so today we'll discuss an often misunderstood account, the Tax-Free Savings Account, or TFSA. Now, if you listen to the last episode, you'll notice a theme of most of these registered investment accounts being misunderstood. That's exactly why I'm doing this series. With the RRSP, it came down to many not liking it due to the taxes owing upon withdrawal. But that was because the account provided a tax deduction when the contribution was made. The issue with the TFSA is right in the name. No, it's not the tax-free part. That one is fairly easy to understand, but maybe hard to trust. Like, is it really tax-free? Yeah, it really is. It's more the savings account part, which has led many to accept lower interest rates and investing options as they just didn't understand the account, didn't get the advice they should have, and opened it up at their bank. And by doing so, missed out on the huge benefit of the account allowing tax-free growth. So let's jump in. What is the TFSA? Who is it for? How much can you put into it? How do you take money out of it? The Tax-Free Savings Account, or TFSA, is a registered account in Canada that started in 2009. It's available for individuals 18 years of age or older who have a valid social insurance number, and it allows them to set money aside tax-free throughout their lifetime. Contributions are not tax deductible. I repeat, not tax deductible. That means you're putting in after-tax dollars into the TFSA. You've paid the taxes on the money and then are investing in the account. Any income, dividends, or capital gains, though, earned inside the account are tax-free to the account holder, even when withdrawn. So again, the TFSA is just an account, not an investment. You can hold multiple TFSA accounts at different institutions if you so desire, but we'll talk about why you might not want to do that, as it can cause confusion and result in penalties due to over-contributing. Contribution room for the TFSA is based on when you turned 18, as that's when you start accumulating that contribution room. So if you're turning or turned 18 in 2024, you can contribute $7,000 this year. If you don't contribute this year, your room continues to build. The account originally started with a $5,000 limit to contribute back in 2009, stayed at that level until around 2013 when it increased to $5,500 for the next 2 years, before getting a big boost all the way up to $10,000 in 2015. Unfortunately, the new government at that time dropped it back down to $5,500 for 2016 to 2018, increased it to $6,000 for 2019 to 2022. 2023 saw the limit increase to $6,500, and then, like I said, $7,000 in 2024. The limit is indexed to inflation and rounded to the nearest $500, which is why we saw it bump up from $6,000 to $6,500 and then $7,000 in such a short period of time. The maximum cumulative amount is $95,000 right now, meaning if you turned 18 back in 2009 or before that and you've never contributed to the TFSA, again, assuming you're a Canadian resident, your limit is $95,000. Now, one of the big benefits of the TFSA is that as you draw money out of the account or withdraw from it, you receive that amount back in contribution room the following year. Again, you have to wait until the following year to get that contribution room back. So if you've never contributed and then fully maxed out early in 2024, the full $95,000, and then later in the year, you needed some and withdrew $50,000, you will be able to contribute that back come January 1st the following year. In this case, that's January 1st, 2025. This amount you take out can also be growth in the plan. So if you've been contributing all along and you now have $150,000 in your TFSA in 2024 and you withdraw that full amount, again, come January 1st, 2025, you'll be able to have that entire $150,000 back to you as contribution room, plus the additional annual contribution that everyone else gets. Now, as you can see, this can cause some confusion on what your limit might be. So it's important that you not just your advisor or CRA, but you keep on top of your contribution limit, as you will be charged a penalty tax if you end up over contributing. Like I mentioned before, this is why it definitely complicates things by having multiple accounts. Something innocent like opening a TFSA at the bank to reduce your monthly service charges, like one of the big banks likes to promote, can lead to having a small account that you forget about and end up over contributing to. You can find your contribution limit by accessing your CRA account, which will include a link to register for in the show notes if you don't already have one. Just visit retirereadypodcast.com and go to the episode 8 page. You can also ask your accountant, and sometimes if you're lucky you can find it on your tax assessment, but that's the document that CRA sends you after they've assessed your tax return, but that's the less likely way to go. Any over contributions are taxed at a 1% per month penalty. So again, it's important to keep on top of your limit. Okay, so you can see the huge benefit of the TFSA, the flexibility in the plan to allow tax-free growth. That could be used for any goal. That's why I called this episode the Swiss Army knife of investing. The TFSA can be used for many different purposes. It can be used as a savings account, which I feel like a lot of people have just by default done, and due to the name, gone with it. It can be used for your rainy day fund, saving for a big purchase like a car or a house. You can use it as a retirement account or just a general investment account. In terms of investment options, just like the RRSP, there are many. It can sit in cash, which normally doesn't earn much, if any, interest, but is accessible to you. You can invest in a high-interest savings accounts, guaranteed investment certificates, otherwise known as GICs, or term deposits. There are mutual funds, index funds, stocks, bonds, exchange-traded funds or ETFs, cryptocurrency through ETFs. Even, again, your own mortgage can go inside a TFSA, although that option is very limited on who provides that. And just like the RRSP, I'm not saying you should hold these things in your TFSA, but you can. It all depends on you, your goals, and your tolerance for risk in trying to earn higher returns. There are some things that you can't hold in a TFSA, otherwise known as non-qualified investments, which includes investments such as physical real estate or land, general partnership units, and cryptocurrency held outright. These non-qualified investments are taxed equal to 50% of the fair market value at the time that it was bought, or that it became non-qualified, and the annuitant or plan holder is also liable for the 100% advantage tax on the non-qualified investment if this income is not withdrawn promptly. So be careful to do your research before you buy, or check with your financial planner to ensure that that investment can be held in that account. Another advantage of the TFSA is the ability to name a beneficiary. By naming a beneficiary, the proceeds of the TFSA as of the date of death flow tax-free to the beneficiaries, bypassing any probate fees. In the case of growth within the TFSA after the date of death, this would be taxable in the beneficiary's hands. It's important for those with a spouse or a common law partner to name them as the successor annuitant, as this will allow the spouse or partner to receive the full account value. Basically, by doing this, the deceased account holder's name drops off the TFSA account and the living spouse's name is now added. Either way, the spouse will receive the TFSA if they name them as beneficiary or as a successor annuitant, but by naming your spouse or partner as the successor holder, they will basically receive the funds and they will remain in the TFSA until needed. And that sounds a little confusing. Let me give you an example. Let's say both my wife and I have accumulated $100,000 each in our TFSAs, having fully used our contribution room plus a little bit of growth for nice round numbers. If I were to pass away, having left her as a successor holder, she would then have a total of $200,000 in the TFSA. Her previously held $100,000 TFSA account and the $100,000 that was mine but is now in her name. If I hadn't named her as a successor holder, with the exact same scenario, she would only have $100,000 in the TFSA and the additional $100,000 that would be non-registered, as the funds would come out of the TFSA, pay to her as the beneficiary, but she wouldn't have any contribution room left, so would have to invest those funds in a taxable non-registered account. So just by making your spouse or common law partner your successor holder, you could save them a lot of money in taxes. And they get to keep this contribution room. So in the example I just mentioned, where there's now $200,000 in the surviving spouse's TFSA, let's say they actually needed some of those funds and withdrew the full $200,000 out, following January 1st of the next calendar year, they get that $200,000 of contribution room back. Okay, so let's just summarize. The tax-free savings account is a registered investment account that you don't pay taxes on the growth or interest. You can withdraw tax-free, and the amount you withdraw is added back to your contribution limit the following calendar year. But make sure you keep track of your contribution limit and make sure you name a beneficiary on the account. Okay, I think that covers everything for this time around. Once again, be sure to click that follow or subscribe button. Please email me at info@retirereadypodcast.com with any questions or ideas for future topics. You can view the resources and links I talked about in this episode and find the show notes by visiting retirereadypodcast.com and going to episode 8 page. You can also subscribe to the Wake Up semi-monthly newsletter by visiting the Awaken Wealth site, which is awakenwealth.ca. Be sure to check back in 2 weeks for the next episode where I'll cover the big question on these accounts of the RRSP and the TFSA, which is better for you. Thanks again for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you back for the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Retire Ready podcast. To subscribe to this podcast or to learn more, please head on over to awakenwealth.ca/Retire Ready podcast. Investment services are provided through Awaken Investments of Align Capital Partners Incorporated, an approved trade name of Align Capital Partners Inc. /ACPI. Only investment-related products and services are offered through ACPI or Awaken Investments of ACPI and covered by the Canadian Investor Protection Fund. Tax planning, financial planning, and insurance services are provided through Awaken Wealth Management Limited. Awaken Wealth is an independent company separate and distinct from ACPI or Awaken Investments of ACPI. Awaken Wealth are not licensed tax professionals, and you should consult with your tax advisor before acting on any recommendations. Investments and investing strategy should be evaluated based on your own objectives. Listeners of this podcast should use your best judgment and consult a financial expert prior to making any investment decisions based on the information found in this podcast.